Booyah! And it's time for the Game Sports Podcast. It is your host, David McCaig Jr. I am joined by the one, the only, I say that for everybody, but got to because we are the only one and only. I love saying that tongue twister right off the hop. The one and only Justin Hykel. Hike, my friend, how's it going?
It's good to be back. A little 2-week hiatus here, but obviously I wasn't lacking in the pick'em, so kind of slacked while I was away, to be honest.
I did. I totally forgot that there's 3 games on Thursday, and of course, being the long weekend over in the States, if I'm correct, just a lot going on. It's honestly missed the picks, and we're going to talk about them. And the standings did have a shift. I'm still in the same position, spoiler alert, but someone is knocking on my door, and it isn't this usual person that's knocking on my door right now. Somebody else, which is great. But of course, this is the In the Pocket segment. Okay, here on the Game Sports Podcast. In the Pocket has been operating for its 8th season now. My goodness, it's been a lot of In the Pocket chit-chat here, and Heikel's been here since the start with that. And of course, I want to make sure I mention Spaces. I think there's going to be a lot more attraction to this episode, especially from a local and in Sault Ste. Marie, because they saw on the, title of the show and the description and the interactions of the debut of the Chuck-a-Puck segment on the third one. That is about the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. So welcome everyone on Spaces. If you got here through 91N on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're tuning in, make sure you follow, subscribe to the Game Sports Podcast. But In the Pocket is presented by, yes, 91N, but presented and sponsored by Sports Center Bar and Grill, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario's best sports bar over a handful of years in a row. Best wings, delicious wings. And I actually owe Hykel some hot wings for a lost bet that I still have not forgotten. Trust me, that will get done. So nonetheless, where am I going to go enjoy those wings? Well, come on now. Where do you think I'm going to enjoy them? It's pretty straightforward and honest. If you don't know, rewind about 10, 15 seconds and there's your tip. So nonetheless, Sports Center Bar and Grill, original home of the Game Sports Show at the time. The Game Sports Podcast now has been a part of the family since day one, just like Hykel has been. And a lot of members here on the Game Sports Podcast, where now we are increasing to over a dozen staff members here on the game. And it's a great family that we have. So make sure if you're not tuning in that you are. And if you're new, welcome. But Justin, a couple minutes in, the usual for the intro. We got a lot to discuss here on the show, and I think football is going to have a little bit less of a time frame this week because I want to allow the Chuck-a-Puck segment to be, give its love for its debut show, right? And talk about the Hounds a little bit extra, so we make sure we out
3 games last week too, so there's just not as much to talk about.
I still watched them. Well, it still kept in chart. I didn't watch all 3 at the same time. But I guess you could if you have the split screen going on and you're really fancy with the tech. I didn't have that. But it was interesting last week, to say the least, the pick'em. And Justin has made some ground. It's great to see. But this week with football in the NFL, we'll get to in a minute, but I want to give some love to NCAA. And yes, we're talking a little bit NCAA here on the Game Sports Podcast without the likes of EJ Russell, who is unable to join us here tonight. When it comes to college football, obviously Michigan is a very popular team when it comes across to this area here in Sault Ste. Marie, and it's obviously landed a top prospect. And there's a lot of conspiracy to that about Dave Portnoy being involved in that and millions of dollars and money being shuffled out. And I'm not going to be the one to realize, because I wouldn't want that to be the case or known for our show. But obviously money does talk when it comes to the world of sports in general. And Michigan did land a very top prospect. It'll be interesting to see how they proceed going into the future. But right now, number 1 in NCAA is the Oregon Ducks, and that is my Oregon Ducks. I like to say, not that I own the team, but that's a team that I cheer for, all because of Marcus Mariota. Long story, but obviously this weekend they're going to be going against Penn State, 3rd-ranked Penn State. And friend of the show and friend of myself and Justin, his name is Pat. He was over the other night, and he was discussing how he thinks this game is going to be a cakewalk for Oregon. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. I would love to say that it's going to be an easy game to watch and very entertaining game, much like the Ohio State game was earlier, over a month back. But Penn State is a very good football team, and I think this is that week where it could be kind of a trap week where, Oregon does have the better football team, and stats do prove that, but you can't underestimate Penn. It's one of those games where it could be a trap for Oregon if they come out flat-footed.
I mean, there's not really in college football with much on the line still for so many teams.
Yeah.
You can't just kind of walk into this thinking this is a rollover game. Penn State's not going to roll over. It's like you said, it's a perfect trap game for Oregon to walk into and just get burned with their cool jerseys.
And how do you very cool jerseys? But how do you think 11-1 with Penn State? That's not a joke, right?
No,
Penn State obviously is a team that they've had some good games as of late. They had a tight one against USC last week. I think Penn State was probably a little bit worried there, but they've had some good games against Illinois, lower ranked. They did lose against. So I'm talking a little bit earlier in the season. My apologies, but they did just absolutely walk all over Maryland. They had a tight win against Minnesota. Sorry, the recent one with USC was back in October. So Wisconsin, they had a pretty decisive win. They did lose against Ohio State 20-13 back about exactly a month ago. Ohio State being sixth ranked is to a little bit of a trap as well, because there's a team that could have better fate. So yeah, I understand they lost against Ohio State. Oregon won, but if you remember, Oregon just got by, or Ohio State. That was their toughest matchup that they played against. So I think if I'm talking college football for game of the week, and yes, it's Penn State, it's Oregon, it's a team that I cheer for, but that's a game of the week for college football, of course, to be watching and making sure you're watching that. But that is Saturday night at 8 p.m. So if you are watching some hockey, you're watching another sport on a Saturday night, you can flip back and forth. Or maybe if you have the technology ability to make sure you split the screens, you can do that, because that is one heck of a game to be watching this weekend. And like, I know if there's a lot of talk about with Michigan, they're not going to playoff football for Michigan. Doesn't look like you're going to see that this year, but it looks like it might be the same for Alabama. Like there's a lot of factors going into this week, and it seems like, the teams that are up there that are expected. You got Oregon, you got Texas, you got Penn State, but Boise State's had a surprising year as well. But teams like Alabama and Michigan, it's been a challenge, especially Michigan. So they're starting to hit the pivotal weeks now.
They're big change years for those programs. I mean,
yeah,
with everything that happened the end of last year, and then Harbaugh leaving, you lose a lot of guys to the draft. Hard to recover. It's a rebuild year for them, and like you said, they're landing a pretty good prospect, help them going into next year. They weren't a bad team this year. They're not a top dog. Alabama, big changes there. Nick Saban was there for feels like ever, but honestly wasn't too long in terms of college coaches. Some guys rot there. And those two teams out of even out of a lot of bowl games, they're not sniffing around the playoff, but they might not even hit the Meineke Car Care Bowl. It's a rough year for those teams.
It didn't impact recruitment though, especially Michigan didn't impact them, right? It's just one of those years.
No, I honestly, I wouldn't expect it to impact recruitment all that much. The program still has prestige. It's like a next man up opportunity for these guys to come in and do their thing, start as a freshman. In some cases.
Exactly.
But as far as the college playoff goes, there's so much room for literally any of these teams to kind of cement themselves as the new top dog going into next year, or to come, be the next Alabama, be the next Michigan.
Yep, have that consistency in winning program each year, and that was a big step with Oregon going to Big Ten this year. It was a nice step for them to make that, and they're not looking back right now. But obviously, Michigan winning last year, I think they get a little bit of a break. Alabama's had a lot of success, as you mentioned, and it's one of the most interesting. I maybe a little biased. I've obviously been in touch with college football, maybe not as much as EJ or the average person, but obviously a bit more invested this year because of who's the top team, right? It's, if it's a Saturday night and it was intermission in a hockey game and Oregon was playing last year, you're going back, you may not turn on the game, but if it's a game on a Friday night or you have a game different where it's on, yeah, of course you put it on. But now it's like when Saturday night's on, even when the Leafs are playing and Oregon's playing, I'm in tune. I want to make sure that's a very special team to watch. And I think that's, like I said, the college game of the week is Oregon and Penn, and I think it's going to be an interesting game on Saturday. So if you got looking for a football weekend to watch, you got some good games, a pivotal week 14 in the NFL that we're going to segue to momentarily here, and we got the NCAA going on, so get in it. Get in it. 5-6 minutes of talking of NCAA, Justin. You and I this year are on fire. Okay, without EJ, we're both doing that. That's no offense to EJ, but I mean we got to cover the ground with EJ being absent, and
it's almost like we know what we're talking about now.
Yeah, wild,
Almost.
right?
It's crazy.
Almost. It's wild. There's not AI telling us what to do, I assure you. Now, and the NFL, Justin, week 13 just passed. Buffalo Bills. Snowstorm. You know, you wear your snowsuit, go watch the Buffalo Bills play. Bills Mafia knows how to, my God, they know how to party there.
Like it's first December, they clinched the division.
Ridiculous. This team, and they beat the Chiefs. Look, for the last couple of years, I've predicted the Bills to be Super Bowl champions. Okay, this year I picked the Lions. This year, and I'm still keen on that pick. The Lions are still my pick, and despite the injuries that they're going through, hopefully they're healthy by playoffs so they can just make sure they get first in that division. I think they need to make sure they get first in that division, and this week against Green Bay is pivotal. They got some upcoming games. The Vikings are in there. They got a tough schedule. I think they got Philly coming up, like a friend was telling me that. So they got a tough schedule, and they got a lot of injuries. It's going to really define this Lions roster going into the last I guess you could say five games into the season. So it's going to be big. They had their bye week early, right? So some of these teams, just recently had a bye week. They're able to really recover and get some guys back.
Colts have a bye week this week. It's the second Sunday in fucking December. And hey guys, it's Christmas in 2 weeks. Give you Sunday off. Go get your shopping done.
Go get your shopping done. Have the time off. Like, it's so big. And, like, I know someone asked me, and I'll use the Lions as an example. I had some people text me, and a friend of the show and friend I mentioned earlier, Pat, was saying that what do you do as the Lions? Like, when it comes to the last type of – you got to win these next couple of weeks. You got to focus on this week and get into it. But if you do win and clinch a division in week 16, do you start load managing?
No. Pedal to the metal.
And that's a key thing where if you're talking basketball, people would load manage, but this isn't basketball. This is football. You got to have the momentum. Momentum's a thing, and I think that is big in football. You go into practice week, you're into the zone, right?
It's all in the coaching too. I mean, does Dan Campbell look like a guy that relaxes?
Good point.
I feel like he's the type of guy that drinks like 3 gallons of Starbucks every day, just like quadruple shot, whatever, just black, like tar.
He might have a candy cane special drink now because it's Christmas time. Maybe he's one of those guys with a candy cane drink. I know I would be, but secret's out.
I don't know. Whatever Applebee's has got on the holiday menu, that's his.
And obviously some other games this week. Again, I'm not going to pinpoint the Steelers game, but that was Russ Wilson, 400+ yards. Like, he outgunned Joe Burrow. And everyone would even agree with this. For the Steelers to go into that game and think that they could do a run and gun game against Joe Burrow, I thought that was not going to be successful, and they were going to rely on the defensive side of the football and just look at maybe a professor type approach to the game. Now, Russell Wilson's like, fuck it, I'm throwing bombs all day, and the guy in there enhanced his 25-year-old self back when he was in Seattle and just hucking the football, and did a very good job doing it. Joe Burrow and the Bengals made it interesting. They kept into the game to a degree, but it's been a challenging year for those Bengals. Your Colts got a good win against the Patriots. But all in all, character win. But overall, I would say that the most exciting game of the week, the Steelers are there for me. But I was still very excited to watch. I love the Browns and the Broncos game for a Monday nighter. That was actually interesting.
For a game that should have been nothing, honestly.
It was great. And the Broncos are 8-5.
Yeah,
Are you kidding me?
Kind of good. Like, Bo Nix is.
Where do you play college football, I wonder? But you know who? Did you not see Winston's stats? 97 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 3 INTs, though. So that those INTs hinder the success of that.
Two of those interceptions happened in, like, the last game.
True.
So, like, he's pretty good.
Yeah, and Jury, like, he's 235 reception yards, 1 touchdown. The Browns offense went off in that game, but their defense couldn't handle Bo Nix and the Broncos offense in that game.
I think the Browns secondary is kind of rough. Their pass rush is probably one of the best in the league. Any week out. Division games, the Browns play like an 8 out of 10 game every time. Like,
every time.
Play them again this week. It's probably going to be a disaster game. Steelers are going to lose somehow.
And it's such a trap game, but you hope it isn't.
Like,
But even the Bills game, I love that Sunday nighter. So I don't mean to flip the switch that
no,
quick.
but like
Those are the two
a snow
games that I love.
game. Anytime there's a snow game, like I don't want to flash back to the Cleveland Pittsburgh game a couple weeks ago. Game would have been absolute dog shit. It started to snow. Everyone thinks it's the best game ever. It's the game of the week right here because they're playing in the snow. This is awesome.
Exactly.
Bills game, totally different game. Very exciting game. The Bills are kind of scary because they look like they're having fun. Like
they're weird.
They're just like pounding teams into the ground and screwing around doing it.
Yeah. In the snow. And it's like they're doing schoolyard bullshit.
Well, and how do you defend against that? It's tough.
And they're used to those conditions too, and they're fine. Most of those guys have played in those before. Josh Allen, newly engaged Josh Allen, knows how to play in those conditions. And you got to think of that Sunday. You can watch your team. Like you were able to watch your team. I was able to watch mine Sunday afternoon. A very good afternoon of football there. Then you had the mid game when you were likely to watch the Eagles and Ravens, which was yet another exciting game. And if you're a Steeler fan, you loved the outcome of that game, just to put them back a little bit more in the division.
Did you see?
And Barkley's gross.
What's his name? Yeah. The white corner for Philly. They drafted him this year. Is it Cooper DeJean?
Is it not? It's not No, not Dallas.
No, he plays for Philly. But anyways, he came in and laid the boom on Derrick Henry, and do a video
Trying to get
later.
Yeah, I missed I missed that tackle. Must have missed that. Must have been one of the times I got up and went to Kagami, the bar.
Every coach in the world that saw that tackle was just like, yeah, textbook, 10 out of 10. That's how we want you to do it in practice, in the game. But on Derrick Henry, it looks like there's 100-pound difference between the two of them, and he knocks him to the ground.
Just an absolute force.
That's
guy knows how to hit.
That's crazy to me.
It's wild. It's impressive, right? It's impressive. So I didn't see it. I got to make sure I check out that.
I'll send it to you.
I got to see that video. But that game, I didn't, as you can obviously tell, I was up and down watching it. But those were a good segue of football for the day, right? But that Bills game was so fun to watch. And surprisingly, yes, I was watching the Leaf game last night, but I was splitting back and forth as the Monday Nighter was on. I was like, holy shit, this is a high school. Holy shit, Winston. Holy shit. 35 receiving yards. Okay, this is a football game. This is a high scoring football game. And Winston is telling to Watson right now, take a seat. You're not getting up off that bench. You sit down. You warm up my coffee. You warm up my beer. What are you? Warm up my beer. You warm up my, what the heck am I talking about? Bro. You keep my beer cold. There we go. Keep my beer cold and you warm up my coffee, whatever he wants, a warm or cold drink. Watson better be running into the locker room and putting in that bottle of his. Okay, that's all Watson's got to do for the rest of this season and probably the rest of his career. Okay, because the guy is a joke. And Winston has battled through this year now. And he's got that little fairy tale effect right now, right? He's that guy unexpectedly that come out and he's had some success. Has it resulted in a lot of wins? No, but he's had that individual success, which is really cool to see. Like last year, we saw Dobbs have a very good run, and when he got traded to Minnesota, and then things died out. I don't see that with Winston. I think he's going to have the ball for the rest of the year, and hopefully he's able to build off this year because the expectations for him were off the charts, right? And I feel bad for Browns fans, right? They had a team that they thought was going to be good the last couple of years, and you have Myles Garrett, who is an absolute, I'm saying this as a Steeler fan, an absolute stud back there, and it's like you feel like you're wasting his.
The Browns management has really screwed over Browns fans.
Yep.
And I feel like EJ would willingly chime in here and rant for probably 15 minutes minimum.
We'll give him that time. We'll give him that time when he's back.
But no, that's
week 14 before the pick'ems. What is your game of the week before we get into the pick'ems this week?
I mean, they're all pretty ugly, but I'm gonna have to say the Thursday nighter this week, Detroit and Green Bay.
Yep.
Because the Sunday slate is like a bunch of rough games.
Rough. Like the Bengals Cowboys might be entertaining, but I feel like it's not gonna like it would have been if people were healthy and had full roster on the Cowboys end, to be honest. Not that everyone may not.
But even it's a Monday nighter, so it's good enough because it's football on Monday night.
Exactly.
But I mean, honestly, if this is the weekend where if you have to burn a Sunday to go out and get some Christmas stuff done or put decorations up, this is probably the Sunday to do it.
It is, especially but not Thursday night. Make sure you
No,
tune
Thursday
in.
night's the lock-in.
Sit down, have some jalapeno poppers, have some popcorn, get some pints, get some hot beer. Again, I had to say it as a joke. Say it twice on the show. Gross. Hike the pick'em. Now, go ahead. You share.
You want to do the standings? I'll do the standings. All right.
This is your tradition. That's your tradition.
All right.
Standings.
So,
I did the standings when you weren't here, and I felt weird because I've swore a few times on this episode. You can tell it's been a week. I did the standings and ran all that, and I felt so out of place. So please.
All right. Well, no movement in first place. Gridiron pick still in first, but with 127 points. Rough week last week. Jay only got 9 correct. You got the other 3 games you missed right. I still would have beat you out there.
Yeah.
It's against the Colts, maybe. I'm not sure. Hike's picks now in second place with 126. So 1 point spread between first and second. This weekend's going to be a big one. EJ still close in third. The Browns is the Browns, 124.
Third place. EJ has not been in third place before, I think, in a long time. I know, and I don't mean to throw Hike there, but obviously it's been 1 point separation between us for like all last year, which was fantastic. And it's looking like this year is not going to be any different.
No.
And EJ did miss about a handful of picks. So even if you did chime him in, if you got 50% of those right, him and I would be tied,
neck and neck.
It'd be all neck and neck still. So you don't want people that maybe chirping that. Hey, yeah, you missed some games, but would he have gotten them correct? We'll never know. Just like me, if I got those 3 correct, maybe I'm up 2 or 3 points, but we'll never know. So the picks this week, Hike, I'm going to let you do the honors to go last because you won last week. I'm going to go first and go from the top, of course, to the bottom. Lions over the Packers, Titans over the Jags, Dolphins over the Jets, Vikings over the Falcons. Actually, kind of a tough pick for me there, to be honest with you. Giants over the Saints. Yep, said that. Eagles over the Panthers, Steelers over the Browns. They're doing it this week. Don't choke. It's a good week to get further ahead in the division. Buccaneers over the Raiders, Cardinals over the Seahawks, Bills over the Rams, Niners over the Bears. Again, kind of tough for me because I feel like that's kind of I got kind of a feeling about that game. And please mark that I said that. Chiefs, Chargers, Chiefs. Bengals over the Cowboys in the Monday Nighter. I think Burrow's got to get a win somewhere, and I think it's going to be this week. 34-31 Bengals over the Cowboys if we're talking tiebreakers, which we are. Kansas City will beat the Chargers 32-18. Most points this week, very obvious. The Philadelphia Eagles and Saquon Barkley might get 200 yards this week. No, I don't really think that, but I think he's definitely getting over 100. Carolina with the least points this week.
All right.
Hike.
Detroit over Green Bay on Thursday night. Titans over Jacksonville. Over the Jets. Remember when everyone thought the Jets were good? Like they were going to be something, and here we are in December, and people are still like, yeah, they're not doing it.
No.
It's not happening.
Nope.
Over the Falcons, only because Kirk Cousins had a terrible game last week. For the Giants, because I don't think Tommy Pastrami is that great. Drew Lock there. Kind of rough. Carolina, I think that might be more entertaining than everyone's giving it credit for, though, because Bryce Young's looked pretty good the last couple of weeks.
Yep, he really took some strides the last couple of weeks, which is good to see. Gets the starting roll back and really has taken it and ran.
I feel like only because Andy Dalton got in a car accident, but here we are. Over Cleveland, I hope. Pittsburgh's been such a Jekyll and Hyde team throughout the weeks. Over Vegas, I got Seattle over Arizona. Buffalo over the Rams. I have Chicago over San Fran.
See, not a bad choice.
The Chargers game, I've been tossing up all week basically so far, but the refs are just going to give it to KC at some point, and KC is going to win. So I'm taking the Chiefs. Cincinnati over Dallas on Monday night, because really Burrow and Jamar Chase and those guys deserve a win. They've had a couple bad beats lately. Cincy 35, Dallas 14. Sunday nighter, I got KC 24 and the Chargers 18. This week, I got the Lions over the Packers on Thursday night. At fewest points this week, Jacksonville, because Trevor Lawrence got his brains scrambled last week, and Mac Jones, their backup, so great. Good luck.
I don't even understand why that hit. Quarterback is sliding. You got to let up on that hit. Like, I know it's hard in momentum. I'm not in that moment.
I reserve judgment. Guy that likes big hits in a game. You obviously don't want to see someone get hurt, but Trevor Lawrence is posting after the game and he's fine. He's good to go. Sometimes when you're a big dude and you're running fast and you feel like you're going downhill, you just can't stop. It's the way it is. I mean, he didn't try. I'm trying to just give him something here.
Give him a little bit of a bone. There you go. From Justin Hykel, the big comeback in the standings this week with the pick 'em. We'll see how it goes this week.
Yeah, a couple risky picks though this week, so we'll see.
Yeah, you got to take chances. Who got to take chances?
I hope
Justin,
it's that Bears pick.
See, I said it, and you said it. It's gonna happen. The Bears are gonna watch. They're gonna win this week, but I gotta stay true to my picks. So, Justin, we've talked football. We talked NCAA. We talked last week. We talked this week. We got in with a little bit extra, but that's fine because I know with the pre-recording with hockey, it's going to be a little less. So we got the time to fit in within the show. I expected the show to be about an hour and a half long, and it seems like we're going to hit that realm because I expect the Chuck a Buck segment, despite being 15 minutes, I bet you it's going to be longer. Lots coming on for this episode. We are just getting started here on the Game Sports Podcast, but nonetheless, Justin, I want to say thank you, my friend. As always, we got a couple weeks still to go until we hit our Christmas holidays, which I'm going to remind listeners when we have, and viewers, when it comes to the Game Sports Podcast recording, we will have an episode next week and the following week, likely after that, after the 17th, unless we do something hockey-based or World Junior-based before Christmas. That may be the last news fully packed show until the new year. We take our annual breaks in the summer, and we take our annual breaks at Christmas time for almost approximately 2 weeks. So please expect that and make sure you keep it. It gives you all the time to catch up on episodes, and I can't wait to start resuming those interview shows as well. Lots of good things with the game coming, but it's always fun talking football and doing it with you, my friend. And of course, we miss EJ with him not being here, but Justin, thank you again.
Yeah, no, always good to be on, and thanks for listening to my garbage opinions.
No, garbage opinions, nah. It's fun, hike, straightforward opinions because you know what? You deserve the win from last week. You were the right guy to pick. So if you're gambling, which we don't promote gambling, we wish you, well, we think you should look at Hike's picks this week. Okay, that's my recommendation. So we're going to be taking just a brief breath. Wow, I just had some tongue twisters today. And when we come back, I'm going to have the Top Shelf segment with Alex and Brennan here on the Game Sports Podcast. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Game Sports Podcast. David McCaig continuing to host you this evening, joined by Alex Parr and Brennan McCarthy. Make sure I get the name right on this one. But nonetheless, fellas, let's go first to Brennan. Brennan, how you doing, my friend? You were just at the Leaf game last night.
I'm great, boys. Yeah.
And while we're recording December 3rd, so just in case people hear this on a different day, the recording of this segment's on December 3rd. So, of course, you were at the Chicago and Toronto game at Scotiabank last night. And obviously, you enjoyed a good game there with Toronto getting the dub, Connor Bedard being there. But obviously, there's some stories we're going to get into with that. But besides seeing a Leaf game just recently, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah. No, Monday night, it was, probably like in previous years, the Leafs probably would have laid an egg. They usually wouldn't show up against four teams, but last night, Matthews, back on home ice for the first time in a month, and potted a goal, which was nice, and got a nice little roast beef Sammy with a side of chips and a pickle, so that was good. But I had an ISO cam on Tyler Bertuzzi, and the whole night I was like, man, why don't you just take a haircut and stay in Toronto? Like, you're playing with a bunch of scrubs, and Connor Bedard, like he has taken a while to find his groove. It's no McDavid, Matthews, Crosby, and it's just like you had a chance to basically have an automatic spot to play with Matthews, and he signs a 5-year ticket in Chicago. But some people chase the bag, some chase cups. So I feel like with the new wave of talent in the NHL, it's a lot of just chasing bags. I don't know what you think.
That's a good hot take. I'll circle back to that because I want to get into that. That's a very good take. And I want to say something about Connor Bedard that I'm going to I might replay the clip, and I think Parr knows what I'm going to say about that. But Alex, my friend, you got a Leaf jersey on. See that?
It was the next gen game. I figured I'd put my next gen
That's a nice
jersey
one.
on.
That's very good.
I just need to see now. I got Matthews on the back, but now that he's, El Capitano, I feel like I got to update the jersey.
See, I got this Tavares jersey when he first signed in Toronto, and it had the A. There we go. I had the A on it. When he got the C, I was like, shit, I'm going to have to change that to a C. But look, he's got the A again. So jersey's literally brand new all over again. So it works out. But
Well,
yeah,
perfect. I'll just keep my fingers crossed that Matthew shows his ass to an Arizona police officer again, and we'll be right back to where it was before.
Okay. Now, hold on. So I want to say something about Bedard, and then I want you, Parr, to talk about people securing money instead of the cups. I like that take.
Okay.
Very hot take. I got something about Bedard. When he got drafted, I said this guy's is an exceptional talent. I believe I used the word a couple times, generational. I think he's very good. I think he's Connor Bedard. But my comparisons to him were not Crosby, were not McDavid, were not even Matthews, not even Draisaitl by any means. I compared him to Steven Stamkos. It was kind of how I felt how Connor Bedard's future and NHL story is going to be. He's going to be effective. He can score goals. He can play make. He's not going to be hitting one-timers from the hash marks. He's not going to be like Stamkos, but a similar career path that I foresaw for was a Stamkos-type career. That's where I saw him landing because of, he eventually might win a cup. He will be a captain of that team. He will get maybe 50 in a season. He might get 100-point seasons a couple times. But to think that he's going to be a Connor McDavid or a Sidney Crosby, Ovechkin, let's throw him in there, best goal scorer in history pretty soon officially. And Austin Matthews, no, I don't. And that's where I see Bedard being like a Stamkos B-Mac. I don't know what you think.
Do you want to go on this one, Park?
Me?
Yeah.
I just took a look at Bedard there. I'm looking at his stats. In his first season, he had 61 points, 22 goals. And I compare that to Stamkos. Stamkos only had 46 points, but he had 23 goals. And I'm thinking, okay, you know what? Dave's cooking here. Maybe he's onto something. Stamkos' second year, he had 51 goals. He topped that only one time after that. Bedard's not even close to matching that this year. He's getting smoked. But I don't know where all this Bedard hate's coming from. There's a lot of love in the collecting world of like hockey cards and memorabilia and things like that for Connor Bedard. All the products from his year are just jacked up. But now people are trying to get rid of it. It's like fire sale and all this stuff. Like all of a sudden people just don't believe in him. Breathe, everybody. He's going to be fine. He's going to be great. Put him in the conversation with all these other guys who have had immediate impacts right away. Is insane and always kind of was insane. Just because he has a couple good World Juniors, let's pump the brakes here. He's still 18, 19, very young player in this league trying to figure it out. He'll be fine. RELAX, relax.
I hear you. I do hear you, Parr. Like, he's not even 20 yet, right? Or is he 20 now? Like, probably we can pump
19.
the brakes. He's 19, right? But, I mean, I was watching last night too, and I was reminding my dad, who I was at the game with, I was like, oh, you see Connor Bedard too. That's pretty cool. I noticed him once, and he was coming to the neutral zone, does a little dipsy doodle into the attacking zone, has his head down, called for an offside. I think, funnily enough, Bertuzzi was offside, and Simone Benoit just knocked him right on his ass. He said, basically, welcome to the show. Like, this isn't the duck. This isn't the Regina Pats or a dipsy doodle around the Slovaks in the World Juniors, okay? Like, that's what he's got to learn, right? I mean, he's pretty short for NHL standards, right? And I just find every Chicago Blackhawk game is scrubs around Bedard, and Bedard really doesn't have enough complementary pieces to thrive right now. Like, every highlight is just Bedard chance. Bedard gets knocked down. Team comes in to support him. Like, it's just, and that's why I'll come back to the Bertuzzi and people going and signing in Chicago as an attractive destination, because why would you? Like, I understand Patrick Maroon. He's got like 3 cups and he probably just wants to, enjoy some deep dish job. But if you're Tyler Bertuzzi, man, you're basically going to run through the gauntlet of the original 6 teams. And
Detroit, Boston, Toronto. Yeah.
And not get a sniff. So, I mean, I heard that like the Leafs were trying to fit him in, but he wasn't willing to take a haircut because obviously the Leafs made otherwise signings like Tanev, Stolarz, who's also been a stud.
Yeah. So
I get it, but I think he's probably someone who just wanted to chase the bag. Like, they did a little, I don't even want to say a video tribute, a recognition tribute for his 1-year time in Toronto, which included a 30-year goal drought, or 30-year, felt like 30 years, a 30-game goal drought. And he basically had this kind of like smirky, kind of evil like smile to the crowd. And I'm just like, get out of here, man. Like, you're flip-flopping teams all over the place. So I'm sure the Leafs are feeling good about themselves, and it's also nice to get a win against a couple former teammates, Bertuzzi, Brody, a couple other scrubs too. Because that's all I got.
And I definitely think that having the better version of Tyler Bertuzzi already in the pipeline or playing for you in Matt Nyes, who has as many goals as Bertuzzi has points
Right.
this season,
Exactly.
is a very nice way to complement that first line and have him slot in there as that power forward. And so good this year. What a leap this guy has taken. Not just a step, like he has long jumped, triple jumped his way, and he just looks amazing.
Yeah, that, and like the securing the bag part, people do chase money, and wouldn't it be nice to just make some money and have win cups and be on winning teams? Like maybe, and I'm not saying that from a Toronto perspective. I'm sure Toronto is a top team to be considered, believe it or not. Everybody that likes to chirp chomp not get out of the first round. But, if you're looking to elevate career and, win a cup, you should be looking at Toronto. You should look at Florida. You should look at Winnipeg. You should look at Edmonton. You should look at Dallas, right? These are teams that Carolina, I'm forgetting about Carolina. I thought New York at the beginning of the year would be, but obviously I think that a slow start. But there's teams that you should look at. And I think that's much better than securing the bag. And I don't know if that's, and I'm going to save this topic for another day. The video tribute stuff. I know we've kind of haven't really talked about that a lot on the show. It's kind of like been a hot topic on other podcasts, but I'd like to know everyone else's opinion because I think the video tributes are a little bit too much now. Okay. And like the person was there for 6 games and they give recognition. Like it's
the Pierre Engvall return.
Yeah.
Video tribute.
Thomas Plekanec.
It's literally.
Yeah.
Right? And I think they made a funny joke, and I can't remember who it was, but Columbus got somebody in a trade and the same day traded him, and then they played him the next night and they gave him a tribute. That's funny. Okay.
That's funny.
That's funny. I would do that. But if I was like someone who was traded to a team, was there for 25 games and got swept in the first round, I don't expect a video tribute. Okay. But teams are doing that. I think it's stupid. But Parr, securing the bag and choosing a team to win, I think winning is more important. And we've talked about this on this podcast.
It is very easy for you to sit here and say, well, why don't you want to win? If the difference between my job is $5 million and $4 million, I'm taking the $5 million. You think I'm going to say no to $1 million to do the same thing and probably do it less with less expectations? That's 20%. That's Dave, would you do your job right now for 20% less than what you do?
Not fair. Not a fair comparison.
100% fair. You're going to work for 20% less. If somebody told you that, you'd spit in their face and you'd laugh and you'd say, "Are you actually out of your mind?" No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go and make more money for less expectations.
That's a fair take. I didn't think of it with my job, Parr. I'm thinking, millions of dollars.
But we're not chasing trophies in our field. Like, sure, like maybe like at an end of year review, it's just like, hey, you know what? Good for you, Parr. We're gonna give you a slight boost. Like, we're not like it's different. It's a different mindset for an athlete. Like, I think it's kind of a loser mentality. Like, for Ryan O'Reilly, he was basically open. Like, Toronto's too much for me. It's too much pressure. And at this point, I have a chip. I just want to go to Nashville and yuck it up and like kind of just fade away. Fair enough, brother. You want a cup in Game 7 at TD Garden. You do what you want, okay? On a team that was dead last in January at the time in 2019. But Tyler Bertuzzi is in his prime, and he chose to leave a Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Riley controlled team and go play with the definition of a rebuild. Like, they are awful. That team is so bad. So I think really, like, for younger guys, like, it's an obscene amount of money that a lot of these young guys take on. And if you're general managers, I guess you kind of just have to hope that it's going to pay off in the future. But 10 years ago, it was like, the Bostons and the Pittsburgh, they'd have their guys and they'd all have the same understanding that it was, we're here to win, right? Like, Boston did that. Obviously, Sid is the prime example of taking the biggest haircut, and it pays off.
He did.
Sid is different. Sid is going to be on your Tim Hortons commercials and your Canadian Tire ads. Do you think Tyler Bertuzzi's ugly mug is going to be driving a Zamboni through the Tim Hortons
Maybe,
drive-thru?
because he's so ugly.
Sidney Crosby's got so many more opportunities to make money than Tyler Bertuzzi has. This was his last chance to sign a big-ish deal. So 4 years and $5.5 million, I think is what it was. You want him to take, let's say, even the same 4 years at $1.5 million left. You're less.
I would say yes. You're going to take $4 million a year versus 5. You're a millionaire. You could retire today.
It's so easy for us to say that, though. Over the whole thing, you're losing $4 to $6 million. Like, that is generational. That would go through your family's bloodline for a long time. I agree that it is kind of a loser mentality of I don't really care. I'll go score 5 points and be a minus 50. Who cares? I'm making a bunch of money. But
until you get bought out. Until you get bought out and you get fucked over and you don't get that full guarantee.
Yeah.
And like literally, he's overrated, guys. Like we saw it forefront of it. And like
Chicago needs to hit the cap floor, so they're not buying out Bertuzzi. Yeah. Where else are they going to spend that money?
This is your headline, Dave McCaig. Chasing bags, not cups. There it is. Boom. Put it up there.
I think that could be taken in a lot of different ways. That type can be taken a lot of different ways. Now
chasing moolah, not cups. Okay, I've sewered myself,
fellas. So I know I had a couple other things pointed out. I think we can save Four Nations for a bit later. That's a bit after. We can get into that after. I know the World Junior roster kind of came out about what they're at the projection of the camp. But by next week, we can probably do a bit more evaluation on the roster, so we can table both of those. NHL redraft will be next week. Okay, so we have a couple items already on next week lined up, which is good. But Parr, I don't know if I want to put you in front of this. Like, I know you had some blind ranking questions last week. Do you have any this week before?
No, I did not come prepared with that.
You didn't come prepared this week, so that's totally.
We were hot about other things. We were hot about chasing cups.
We were hot about chasing balls. I mean cups. Chasing. Okay, so we'll do that interactive stuff next week. So let's spend the next 3 minutes get into our final segment. Then I'll start our final point. Then I'll wrap us up. So. What I wanted to get into on the other side of things was obviously Ovechkin's injury was shitty for him this year, right? We've talked about Ovechkin a little bit extra. We've talked about, will he break it? Will he not break it this year? And overall, it doesn't seem like this year is going to be possible. But when I look at the season this year, and I saw the return, like, for example, Columbus made a trade with David Jarachek to go over to Minnesota. What a haul Columbus got for that trade. I think Columbus made out of that trade as bandits with the value that they got. And I'd consider and talk about trade deadline stuff. That's also future. But I feel like the price tag for defensemen are so obnoxiously higher than it's ever been in the NHL. Especially if you're a right-handed shot defenseman, the value for you to skyrocket. So Kotanev got, as old as he is, for the amount of years that he got at his age, right? Just a prime example. You can look at a guy like Colton Parayko, who would have to waive to get traded anywhere, but a big 6'4", 5 guy who's a right-handed shot defenseman that you would kill to have on your D-core in the top 4. All right. I feel like what I want to mention to kind of wrap up and lead to the end is the value of defensemen. Okay. And do you feel that the value of defensemen is right? Left, right-handed shot, do you think vet defensemen are overvalued today? So that's the one thing that I will put you on the spot here tonight to answer. Is our defensemen overvalued, or are they valued at the right market price? Parr, I'll go to you first.
Don't know if you're just looking at this David Jarachek trade under a microscope just because it's the most recent thing that's happened. He's just under a point a game in the A. His first full-ish season was 43 games, 10 points on Columbus, only a -4. He was drafted 6th overall in 2022 and played in the World Juniors 2 years ago. This guy is super young. And for Minnesota, they traded their first and a bunch of other picks. But if you look at that first, it's going to be a 20-plus pick. So instead of the mystery 20th-plus pick, you get a David Jarachek, a guy that and probably wasn't really being developed in the best way. I think I can only think of Werenski, who Columbus has been able to develop all in the last decade or two on the back end. I think this trade makes a lot of sense. I don't think it's as crazy of a trade. I mean, maybe sure, 5 years from now, David Jiricek doesn't pan out. But for right now and the career path that he should be on, this isn't that ridiculous. What are you going to get out of that third, fourth, fifth pick that are in that trade? Probably a handful of games. It's a mystery box for less of a mystery box in this case. So I don't think that this trade was that crazy on either end.
So defenseman, though, do you feel like, and I did speak on Jiricek there a little bit, Parr, but are defensemen overvalued in today's market, or are they valued at the right amount? I feel like the defenseman value is just skyrocketed.
Okay, well, you brought up Chris Tanev then let's take a look at the Leafs' advanced defense stats this season, where they went from like 17th ranked to like anywhere from 30th in slot chances, high danger chances, rebound chances, to in the top 7 of all of these categories now.
Yeah.
So sure, you can say that they're spending a lot of money, too much even so maybe, but results matter. That's what talks, and it's working 100%. I thought that OEL deal was insane. I thought that was so stupid. Oh my God. Is he my new favorite Leafs defenseman? He might be.
Yeah.
He might
Feisty.
He's solid, man. And actually, it might have actually been him who knocked down Bedard, not Simone Benoit. But yeah, Ekman Larsson has been basically what we expected him to be, and just a stalwart on the back end. I actually would say, Dave, that sometimes they're not valued enough. Like if you're a general manager and you're going into a draft and you have a first round pick, I think you have to go and do like double the homework to be like, who is the stud on the back end? I want him, and that's who I want to build around. Because forwards you can pick up in the late round and have kind of fill the holes, because we've seen time and time again how many gems come out of the late rounds, right?
Right.
But like if you're a GM and you mentioned Colton Parayko, like you got to be salivating at how well he has developed, right? And I think it's more of a tip of the cap to a general manager if they can say, yeah, no, I drafted that guy. And obviously the scouts and there's so many people involved to make sure that it's the right pick. But the Leafs are a great example, because in the Matthews Marner era, this is the first year they finally can say they have a well-rounded, balanced back end.
Yep.
Before it was like Riley and like us three, basically. And Riley on like a Vegas team would probably be like a third or fourth. So what does that tell you? Like, and Vegas, they probably maybe not as complete as when they won the cup. Like a couple guys have come and gone, but like that decor was unbelievable, man. And I hate to use this cliche, but defense does win championships, and the Leafs are finally realizing that. And it took a new GM and a new coach who are just rugged and mean and no nonsense. And it really starts to click. You mentioned all the stats and how things have improved with this new decor, Parr, and it's so important. Like forwards, you can like Grabankin, like this guy. It's like put him in the top 6 when people are down, right? Like he'll be a fireball, right? It's just like, oh, there's a guy. But defense, man, it's just like you watch Colton Parayko, Pietrangelo, all these guys. Like the Sens have a bunch of studs in their system, so it's really important, and it should be like really, really valued.
Yeah, good point, boys. I actually really like that. So they're valued, I will agree, at fair market price, but like you say, salivating over defensemen. Antoine Silviev, who was just drafted this year, 6'7" stud. That's who I am looking at from the draft. I'm a fan of him. I've always been a fan of Yaroslav Askarov. I know somebody in this call always points me out on that. I think it was it you, Parr, that called me out on Askarov on the chat, how I was a fan of him as a goaltender overall, right? So as Jordan Trudeau joins up in the chat, Trudeau, how's it?
Hey, sorry.
Whoa.
You're good.
Oh, good? Okay.
You're good.
Okay.
You're good. I'm wrapping us up anyway, so that's totally okay.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
Trudeau, just so everyone knows, is going to be joining us on our next segment to talk Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. So it's good
Trudeau.
he's here early. So this is Brendan McCarthy, Trudeau, just so you get to introduce to him. I'll get you guys more acquainted off air. But just to wrap up our segment, fellas, I think defensemen are certainly valued in the fairway, and I would be salivating over a big defenseman as well. I've always been a fan of. I know I talked about Askarov there briefly, but my point is defensemen, big defensemen, Parenko, the size. I'm a big fan of Nemec as well. When New Jersey drafted them, they have a lot of young studs coming up too on the back end. So defensemen are certainly a value that you have to treasure. Okay, and it doesn't matter what league you're talking about. But Brendan, Alex, you stayed a little bit extra. I'm a couple minutes over. I know I said 6:15, so I'm doing good with the time. I'm gonna let you go, and you, well, Brendan. So Alex, thanks for taking the time, my friend. And we're gonna connect next week. We'll get back to our blind rankings and all that. I got Trudeau going through his first round of blind rankings this week.
No, nice. Okay, I can't wait to see.
Yeah, Brendan, thanks for taking the time, my friend. Next week, same time, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
See you, fellas.
Welcome back to the Game Sports Podcast. David McCaig continuing to host you this evening. Now, look, here on the game, we're always growing. The game has been around since 2016. The roster has been the same, with some additions, of course. Brandon, who you just recently saw in our Top Shelf segment. Obviously, we have a new face as well joining us again locally here from Sault Ste. Marie. Okay, he's a Greyhound fan. He's had experience inside the staff with the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. Okay, this is someone who knows his stuff with the Sioux Greyhounds, not just from knowledge of sports, but from being a fan. We are a passionate fan base in Sault Ste. Marie. Let me tell you, we are a hockey town when it comes to, well, hockey, of course, but the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. And we are introducing here on the game in connection to, of course, our joining of Spaces, which is through Village Media and Sue today. It makes sense to make sure that we dive into a lot more local, like we used to here on the game. Then we took a little bit of a break, and I wanted to dot some I's and cross some T's and get back into talking more local here on the game. And what better to make sure that we do that with a new segment of the game called Chuck a Puck. So this is the Chuck a Puck segment. If you're a Greyhound fan or you like, if you know, okay,
you'll know why.
You'll know why.
Yes.
So that is what we are officially calling this segment. That here on the game, we're calling it Chuck a Puck, and it's going to be devoted to, yes, OHL news to its point, but mostly about the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, okay? We might throw some more of the hockey local news in there if you're from Sault Ste. Marie, but it's going to be majority about the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, official Greyhound segment, one of its own Soo Greyhound podcast segments in Sault Ste. Marie that we're proud to introduce here on the game. And without further ado, I'm going to bring I'm going to call him the quarterback, the number one center, if I will, the number one center, the number one D-man, the number one goalie of the segment per se, the one only Jordan Trudeau. Trudes, my friend, welcome aboard here on the game, and I'm very excited to have you join me here tonight and just going forward with this segment, man. It's exciting.
Thanks so much for having me. I've been wanting to do this for quite a while now, just to be able to talk about, my team from a fan standpoint, from a hockey mind standpoint. So I'm very excited to be here, and I can't wait to get going here. So
definitely. And, there's going to be a lot more coming from our Chuck a Puck segment. We have a lot of ideas that I can't share. They're all in motion, but we want that interaction with the fans, okay, with fellow Sault Ste. Marie Greyhound fans. If you're from the Soo or not, if you got connected here through Spaces, social media, Facebook page, that we know that there's a very popular Soo Greyhounds Facebook page. If you got connected through that here, don't be afraid to interact with us. Trudes and I love the interaction, chirps or not. Sure. If you disagree, you agree. You get in there. You tell us. Get in there. Tell us how you feel. And if you really want to speak your mind, call in if you dare, because we'll start doing that as well if you dare.
the OHL and especially the Greyhounds have one of the most passionate fan bases probably in the whole league. And this goes for a lot of other OHL teams too. A lot of fan bases are very passionate. So yeah, feel free to agree to disagree. We're just here to talk about sports. And it's, in my opinion, it's the best hockey league to watch in the world, but that's very biased. So
And I know people
not either.
And I know people may have continued to join us from our Top Shelf segment, where that's a more National Hockey League approach. So it's a good segue from that. And you interrupted that call, but I mean that in a good way. It was a great jumped right in and said, "I'm coming." You were excited to join. I love it. So of course, we have a lot to get to in a short period of time. In the introduction here, we expected to take a handful of minutes, and we're right on cue because I talk a lot, but I want to show the love and how excited I am to have you join, man. I'm very much looking forward to doing this segment, and I'm happy that it's with you. You were the first choice, first person I thought of doing it with, and look at that, you're joining. I'm so happy that that's the case. Okay, so nonetheless, Greyhound update. Okay, Truce, from a fan perspective, give us the update. Obviously, if you're looking at the standings for the Soo Greyhounds in the OHL, you can go from the top to the bottom. Who's hot? Kingston, London. You got the teams that are hot, but the Soo Greyhounds, if the playoffs started today, they're in there. This is a team that I feel has a lot of fight in them. I think they have a lot of fire and they want to play hard. You can see that, but obviously this isn't a season that we were expecting. We're going to see Memorial Cup, to be fully transparent, but who knows how a season could turn around, but it's not what we were expecting. So Greyhound update as of today, which is actually December 3rd of this pre-recording. So things can change over the next couple days, but give us an update from your perspective.
They're the bottom 4, bottom 5 of the Western Conference. So it's been a bit of a rough stretch for them. They've dropped 7 of their last 10 after really going on a bit of a hot streak. But they've had many key injuries, Dave. So they've probably had about 3 average players sitting out per game, like regular players, just different guys getting injured. And then so one guy comes back, 2 more out of the lineup. Like it's been like really, really chaotic in terms of injuries on
the injury bug bit them.
Yeah. And so like as of today, they'll skate into Saginaw on Wednesday. That's tomorrow. Kitchener Friday, Owen Sound on Sunday. They'll be without their Swedish import, Newell Nord, expected to miss the World Juniors actually, which is really, really unfortunate for him. Yep. Spencer Evans, he's a second-year defenseman. He's really, really got into a top 4 role this year. And possibly Charlie Schenkel and Christopher Brown, who have had injury flare-ups. So one key injury that has really, really affected them is Charlie Schenkel. So the overage netminder, he's second in the league among qualified goalies in save percentage and 4th in GAA. So on a team that tends to struggle in their defensive zone, a young team, he's been a very, very huge loss in these past 3-4 games. So that's been the update. Hopefully, they can grind out some wins here on the road and then
right the ship,
see what goes from there and into Christmas.
Yeah, that, when the injury bug hits a team, they always say the term that good teams find ways to win, but obviously it depends on the players that are out. But when you're missing the goaltender that they've been missing out with obviously Charlie, so a guy who is in that top threshold in the league, save percentage, GAA, that is an impactful piece of the team, right? And that's what's
standing.
Exactly. Exactly. And I know we're going to talk trade stuff, and I think he's mentioned in my asterisks, which may break some hearts of fans, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Definitely mine. We'll say that.
Definitely, right? But this is a team that has, as I said a few moments ago, has fire in them. I feel like despite the players, they work hard, they do play hard, and obviously it's a passionate fan base. Everyone has their opinion about the games where they've struggled in. But I like to always remind people, this is the type of team that we have to be mindful of what they were expected to do. And I think that despite being under, for the 500, it's still going to be a team that's going to be overachieved still. I feel like the potential is still there this year, especially if they come back healthy. I think with the work ethic that they have, if they are healthy, I think the record would be a little bit different, and get some playoff experience with some of these young guys in here would actually be very vital for the success in the future.
Yeah, they are competitive every night, and that is what you want to see out of a junior hockey team, especially one that had many graduating players from last year, right? So they're a young team, a lot of guys stepping up this year, and a lot of new guys coming in. So when they are competitive and they remain competitive in the standings, and they're going toe to toe with teams like London, Saginaw, Flint, like all those teams are probably going to be near the top at the end. So when they're going like toe to toe with them, that's a good thing to see.
It is, right? And being in those games, and fans, if you're kind of in that perspective where you're wondering, what am I going to see? What team am I going to expect? This is what you're expecting. A team that's going to give it, they're going to give it their all.
They are.
They're going to play with fire. They do.
They play hard.
And a team that's injured. That's also what you're getting. You know? You're not getting the true roster. So it'll be interesting to see when everyone is there, how this team really goes. But like I said, goaltending wise, you got some. It's tough when you're missing Charlie out of there. So.
Yeah.
So the overall with the Hounds, a big game, big week for them. And we'll make sure as we incorporate here on the Chuck-a-Puck segment, I'd like to make sure, I love saying that. I think it's great. We'll make sure we have the weekly games that we tell you, some of the previews, and when time allows for that for the show, we really want to get into some points that we have. So we're going to table getting into each game preview for the week per se. But I feel like it's important if you're at the game and you want to share some pictures of the game and you want to put a hashtag for the Game Sports Podcast, please do. And we'll make sure that we can share it here on the show because we love to see the atmosphere at the GFL. And there's been question with that a couple of times. It's been very popular in the social media, but I'm again saving these topics for future shows and interactions. All right. So overall, the updates, as even though I kind of botched the record right off the hop, looking at different stats at the end of the day, that's the point is this is the team that is riddled with the injury bug. Is a team that has shown that potential that can be into games and that they play with fire. And one thing that I like, and I want to make sure I say this because this is my father-in-law's point. Okay, Trudeau. He said that he wishes the league, kind of everything, had a 7-7-7 strategy. Okay. He said for teams, so having 7 players aged 19, 7 aged 18, and 7 who are younger, so that when the older kids leave your team, it doesn't need to create a full team. Now, he is a very passionate and very knowledgeable hockey individual. And I'd like to get into this topic a little bit more to understand, but this is something that he texted me today. So if you ever see of a mystery person, maybe it's my father-in-law that's coming on this show. There's a little teaser and a little hint for people if they get to watch the full episode. So if you listen to the full episode here, you're getting a lot of teasers of topics that are coming up to get you excited for. But I think that was the 777 strategy was a very interesting take, and I'd like to hear more about it. If you, as a viewer or listener, have a comment, let us know. Or Trudeau, do you have a reaction about the 777 strategy, or should we save it for the listeners and revisit that?
My initial reaction, I don't know if I agree with it, to be honest. I like in terms of winning a championship, I think that's kind of what the Greyhounds have done in the past 6-7 years, right?
Yeah.
And we haven't seen the outcome that I think that the fan base has wanted.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting I'd have to do a little more digging, but it'd be interesting to dive into that 7-7-7 strategy.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I haven't heard too many people talk about it. So if you know what that is as a viewer or listener, comment below, but we'll make sure that we dive into it more. And I'll have to get some more feedback from my father on that one.
Yeah.
A little credit. I can't take all the credit, or we can't take all the credit for all the topics. So you know what? I had to mention that one out because it was really pointing out to me. But trade deadline, okay, true. It's around the corner. You get the World Juniors, it's just around the corner. You have that happening. Obviously, when the World Junior happens, they basically start stitching the names out of players that they're getting traded to already. Yes. And when Radish got traded here, I think the name, the jersey bar, was already getting made when he's in the World Juniors. So funny take there. But the trade deadline, Trudes, I want to give you the floor with this because you had a very good take and plan for it. So the floor is yours. Very interesting trade deadline the Hounds have. And I think truly a very interesting opportunity to really improve this team, but maybe not the way that people are thinking.
It's going to be interesting what the Greyhounds do at the trade deadline. Last year, the Greyhounds were, I guess you would say, a buyer, right? They brought in Gavin Hayes and Jacob Frasca, yeah. Frasca. So they really were trying to make a push for the OHL championship. Obviously, it didn't work out. They lost to the eventual Memorial Cup champs in the second round. That was a great series from both teams. It was that was
awesome. It was so competitive.
It was tough that one of those teams had to lose right then. So with the junior hockey cycle, keeping the junior hockey cycle in mind, I guess this is kind of my personal view. So maybe my personal prediction. I have a list of players that I feel like are going to be possibly traded. So I would label the Greyhounds as a conservative seller at this trade deadline. So you're looking to remain competitive, make the playoffs, but they need some draft capital in order to make a push when their newly acquired 17-year-olds are 18 and 19.
Yep.
Because Brady Martin and Travis Hayes are certainly going to be some of the top players in this league when they're that age. So you want to try and, build up a team to surround those two in order to have a contending window.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Andrew Gibson, drafted by Detroit, traded to went to Nashville. He's going to be heading off to the World Junior Camp. He's a beast back there. He logs probably 30 minutes a night. Top two defenseman. 100% he will be traded. I feel like he will be traded. Should be traded.
100%. This is 100% stamped approved. You're saying.
Yes, I'm saying 100%. He's going, right? And while it's sad, it's very sad to lose a player like that. You have to look, like you said, Dave, to improve your team for this year, yes, but for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Right? When you
the trade pick, the draft pick
is leaving this year, and he also deserves a shot at a championship too, right?
Yeah.
So Andrew Gibson, big two-way defenseman, he 100% will not be a Greyhound. We've probably seen his last game as a Greyhound actually this past weekend. So, so sadly,
yeah, some fans might have points that I like it. That's.
We'll bring in a haul though. Multiple seconds, hopefully a rookie player or two, and he is a must trade in my opinion.
Yep.
Owen Allard, so he's an overager.
100%. No, he's got to be 100%.
95.
95. Okay.
I would take a 5% off because he's an overager, right? So that's a bit of a barrier.
Yeah.
So teams he's obviously going to be an upgrade for anybody, but teams would have to, if they have 3 overagers already, they would have to give one up or get rid of one to acquire him. So that's why I would
that one goes to the Hounds. Yeah. The Hounds would maybe have to look at flipping that other one to another team that if they have the spot to take or keep. Yeah.
Yeah. So it might be a little bit of a barrier, but I mean, since he didn't report for training camp originally, I would assume that the intention of him returning to the CHL this year, because he could have played pro.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would assume that intention was you're going to be dealt to a contender.
Yeah, eventually.
So I would put him really high too. So 95%. Charlie Schenkel, the OA goalie. You know what? I would say 50%. I'm going to give this one. Yeah. And the reason why the Greyhounds backup, who they're trying to move into more of a starting role, Landon Miller, he's NHL drafted. He has struggled this year though. So I would think that Charlie would be a barrier too, right? Where he's an overager. So again, only 3 overager spots. Most teams have their overagers. Also, it's kind of more recently, I'm finding more often teams are addressing more needs than goalies at the I don't know why, but
they're really focusing on the defensive side. I feel like defense and forwards have been obviously both of them have been popular, but they've really been focusing on outside of the goaltending. That's very true.
Because they usually stick with their goalie.
That's a good point.
I'm noticing, so that's why I would give him a 50%.
Okay. So I was thinking higher, but I like your take because the goaltending to take away that OA spot, you need to be maybe this is a soft spot for a lot of having Jack Campbell, right? There's and you would get a haul, and the Hounds did pay a haul for Jack Campbell. But they didn't really need to trade for Jack. They didn't need to that year. We're not going to open up that bag of worms.
It was.
Didn't need to, but Charlie is a save. My original was 75% just because of that OA. But you bring up a good point, that OA spots, which you really got to be mindful of. If you're a team that is contending, unless your goaltending has been really suspect throughout the year, and you're not confident going into the playoffs with that current tandem or goaltending that you have, you may not look at bringing in a goalie. And if you do, maybe you're not looking away. You're going to think of like a 18-year-old if you could, if they're of a fair value. So 50% seems to be a bit more fair now that you justify that.
That's what and mixed with the Greyhounds' own, like, I don't want to say problems because I don't think it's a problem, but like maybe their I will say like their backup goalie not being as far along as they would maybe hope.
Yeah.
So you keep Charlie. I don't think it's a bad thing either way. Like, I mean, I'm biased.
Yeah.
I would selfishly like to see Charlie finish the year here, but also at the same time, like if you can net some draft capital with dealing him, you have to do it because
that's the point. What I'm saying, if
you're looking at contending with Martin and Hayes, so
truly, dare I say, take anything, Trudes. Like if a team does call and wants to take him and say, hey, maybe it's not a second and 4 thirds, and maybe it's not what you want, but maybe it's still that second and a third and seventh or second, third, and a small a goalie who's young and 10th round pick of a team or whatever it may be. You do that because you're getting something for nothing. I'm a firm believer of asset management. And if I'm a team that wants to win, I'm buying. I'm going all in to win because that is my expectation of what I have from my team. If I'm a team that is selling, my recommendation is, or as you mentioned, conservative seller, which I think is good because you've got to be conservative. I see that approach. But the OAs, I think you got to. If someone's giving you a value for them and you fill a roster spot with another trade or the same trade, and it's not going to really disrupt too much, and you're going to get that value that you want, even if it's not fully what you want, I think you got to get something for better get something for something than rather than nothing.
Yes.
Right? That's my approach.
For sure. So I think we summed it up pretty good. Like if you're, if you get a call, you kind of got to
pick up the phone. You pick up the phone.
It may not be a call. So
Make it easy.
Newell Neward, before his injury, I had him at 50%, maybe even higher. But now that he's been injured, I don't know because we don't know the severity of the injury.
Yep, it could hinder some teams from not wanting to do it, depending on what.
John Dean has said that it's significant, so he's week to week. So like we're hearing he's going to miss the World Juniors, which is like really a tough thing for the poor kid being at 19. Yeah. Like that would be his big year.
Big
championship. That's a big year for your development. So I mean, it could go either way again. But either way, he has a barrier as well where he's an import, right? So teams in the CHL are only allowed 2 import spots.
Yeah.
So the acquiring team would have to have an open import spot, or they would have to get rid of 1 import.
Yeah.
Whether trade them or whatever. So like that's kind of a barrier as well. Like it's not as easy as a Gibson trade.
So is that like a 20, 25 to 10, even 15% possibility trade now because of the injury?
Yeah. Like he's a 19, so he would definitely net you some draft picks.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it will happen. But again, not a bad, leader to keep around.
No.
Right? Gibson goes, Allard goes, you keep Neward here and he can.
And that's a development opportunity too.
Development, yeah.
They can look at it from how he bounces back from that injury and how he's a leader of a team that isn't a top team per se. It's still a team that's in the mix to play some playoff hockey and get that experience. But again, it's interesting.
Yeah. So lastly, the last players on the list, we have Marco Mignosa, Caden Carlisle. I have them at about 15%. And then Justin Kluche at 5%. I just think for any of these guys, Raptors would have to be just blown out of the water. Yeah. Because, if Gibson's going, you're going to need, Carlisle's your captain. He's been named the captain. So if they were intending on dealing him, I think they would have made Martin captain at the start of the year.
Yeah.
Right?
Good point.
But, so and you need 1 veteran defenseman back there.
Someone, you need a body. You can't.
You need somebody with a veteran presence back there.
Yeah.
But I think other than a sweetener with Carlisle and Mignosa, I think he would have to be blown out of the water because also with Mignosa and Kluche, they could return as overagers. And with the production that they're putting up right now, they look like two really solid overagers for next year. So I think they're more. I would keep them.
Yeah, and like you said, unless they get that, never mind just a coffee with some sweetener. You're getting a little donut as well with it.
Yeah.
Upset.
Yeah, unless you, or a whole
that coffee, a nice homemade cookie. You're getting something with you on that, the homemade cookie, something. And that's where managers, that's, I think, the fun part about being a manager. It's very stressful, and Raftis has been around for a bit, obviously. And I think, when you're a GM of a team, and it's different, you can take so many approaches when you're buying. You got to be cautious how you buy, because if you overpay, you can really, really hinder the future years of the organization, right? But if you're in a sell, I think it's easier to almost be a seller, or even a conservative seller, than it is a buyer, because
less pressure. Yeah,
a lot less pressure. The fan base understands, okay, this isn't a win, even though the expectations here, especially in SSM, are higher up all the time. It's just how we are. But I think there is a general understanding and realization that this is not a team that's going to be truly, unless a sort of a miracle or some miracle run, which does happen. Okay. But ultimately, you got to go with the likely approach is better for the organization. If you can get value for those OAs, you got to jump on it. You have to jump on it. If it doesn't matter, you get that option, you take it. You can wait till the end of the deadline to make sure you don't get any other coffee and cookies, as we're saying on this show, a little bit extra today for those overagers. But as soon as you get one and you hit that time, okay, you sell it. Or if someone gives you a deadline, says, hey, you got to let me know in 2 hours. If you don't have anything else in that 2 hours, you take it. Look, you just take that trade and you make that move to move the OAs. And if you can move Gibson and get that haul that you expect, oh my.
Yeah, it's going to help you next year when you're, kind of your stud young players, Travis Hayes, Brady Martin, Carson Andrew, are like, they're getting into their prime years, right? So like, you want to build around those players.
And then obviously Brady Martin, who's obviously a fan favorite.
Everyone
loves Brady Martin too. So like,
a lot of listeners would know Brady, 3rd overall pick. Just came back.
Traded, guys. I don't think he's traded. No, he's not. Unless there's about 17 first round. No, coffee, sweetener, and a dinner. Okay.
Yeah, that would. That he's locked. Travis Hayes locked. I think everybody would know Brady. He hits like a truck, 6 feet. Point per game player right now at 17, which is very impressive.
Yeah.
A ranked skater for the NHL Central Scouting, so he'll probably be a first rounder.
Yeah.
But Travis Hayes, he might be in Brady's shadow a little bit. He's also very impressive. He's got a pro shot already.
See, and I don't think being in the shadow is a bad thing.
It's not.
It's not. I think like you can look in NHL comparisons as much as you want.
Yeah.
Like Matthews, I'll use a Leaf example as everyone can see where Matthews, Marner, right? Matthews is hurt, Marner steps up. Like, where is that every year, Mitch? Right?
Yeah, Marner's been outstanding.
Tavares was even better with Matthews out, right? People step up, but it's not because they're not effective when they're there. There's just the spotlight is on one person.
Yes.
And we're being so observant about these other guys because they're not doing that, but they still are doing that. Okay. It's just a matter of, it's okay to be in the spotlight. The pressure's off, and that's not a bad position to be in. The pressure, well, it's still there, but it's not as much as someone. Obviously, the spotlight is purely on Martin because of what his age and what he's to do, but there is spotlight on Hayes. And I think this is a good opportunity for Hayes to really make this team his with Martin, right? Set that locker room. This is theirs, right? The future is these guys, right? These are the guys that we're going to want to, that we are going to go to battle with now, but this is the team I want to go to battle with until my last step on that ice of the GFL. And hopefully it's with holding a championship in my hand, right? And with guys like Martin at the helm, that you have the potential to do that and build around. And if you make the right moves at the deadline, it will set up for that success in the future while these young
guys. That's what we're looking for this year. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Now I know it was perfect because we dove into Brady Martin and Travis Hayes in deadline, but do you have any final other points you want to bring up with the deadline before we go to our final topic of the day?
I think Kyle Raftis is always interesting. So whatever he does, there's a purpose behind everything he does. So I think it's always interesting to see what he'll do. But I think in terms of certainty, I would say Gibson and Allard are probably the only locks. That would be the conclusion there. But
and
I
the
don't
big
know.
haul that we're getting is Gibson. Well, you get a good haul for a
The big
lot.
haul is Gibson. Yeah, he's the big fish, right?
Yeah,
So.
yeah. 100%. And there's teams that would, because of the age, there's going to be teams knocking on the door there. You got to think
Sure.
London is probably going to be knocking on that door. You think
London, Kingston, Brampton.
Yes. Barrie even. Maybe if Barrie's looking to make.
Saginaw is interesting because they still have Perek and Misa. But I don't know if their draft capital is
They did sign
there anymore because of last year. So, but they still have two really, really solid players to build around. So,
and you're not just selling to a team because you want.
I don't. Yeah,
they want to get the best haul that you get. I don't care where I send you. I'm getting the best haul, but I want you to go win a championship. I think the Hounds will do right by Gibson if we're going to move them.
Yeah. So I would say London.
It's maybe the Spitfires are a team you got to
look
at.
Could be, and that's his hometown, eh? Like LaSalle's his hometown. So if Windsor wants Gibson and is willing to pay for him, I think that's where he goes. But
prediction. Listeners, viewers, where do you think these guys are going to go? Let us know where we think. I'm going to go with you on that, Truth. I think Gibson's going home. I think that'd be a good story.
Yeah. I would love to see it.
100%. Where do you think they're going, listeners, viewers? Comment below to me and Trudeau. Gibson, Allard, are these guys going? Where are they going? Give us a reaction and let us know what you think. Let us know. Feel free. Don't be shy. We're not shy, especially me. Truths can tell you there's zero shyness here. Just don't hesitate. We want to hear back from you. All right. So, Truths, final topic of the day. Obviously, we went a little bit extra, but it's okay. We'll consider this an extended version because it's the first one that we've done. Okay. Now, the last one, I want to do a blind ranking. Okay. Now,
I'm a bit excited for this, actually.
So,
thinking about it. Okay.
So here's kind of what I am thinking for blind ranking. The blind ranking, the way that it works, all right, is just so everyone can be in the know. Blind ranking can go two ways but no, ultimately here on the Game Sports podcast, I'm going to name individuals for Jordan Trudeau, and Trudeau is going to rank them where he thinks from 1 to 5, not knowing who I'm going to state the next time. So I could say somebody like, and it's anyone not named Gretzky. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm not going to go with those guys that you think were the best point guy of all time. And I know that's not Gretzky, but nonetheless, I'm going to go with guys that you may not think that I'm going to say, just to make it a little bit more challenging for Trudeau to say. But I'm going to keep it realistic on who I say. So I'm not going to go back to someone in the 70s and throw him from down in the
Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm nervous here. I don't know. I'm excited. I want to see.
And we'll do different blind rankings. Maybe we'll do the same one next week to talk about players we didn't touch on. But we're going to keep the first one good, but a little bit lighter. That I won't go on the extreme hard difficulty as I did usually on Parr and those guys. But excited for this. So just a reminder, everyone, blind ranking. I give 5 players in any order. Trudeau puts them as 1, and he puts them to 5. He puts them to 4, and he puts them as we go till the end. As I pull up my notepad sheet, I want to make sure that I track what he says and I can remind you what he chose. Okay, Trudeau, going to number 1. Oof, this now a little bit of difficulty of this. Rick Jackman.
Defenseman
Rick Jackman.
Defenseman. Okay. So I got 5 spots. So I need to put him like 1 through 5.
1 through 5.
Rick Jackman. He was 78 born. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So he would have played.
So there's some older guys that I am bringing in, but not too hard of difficulty.
He played in the 90s. He would have played. Yeah, in the 90s. Defenseman.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. You know what? I gotta stop thinking. I'm gonna put him at 4.
I'm gonna put him at 4. Rick Jackman.
4.
And the reason why I want to mention Rick is actually a friend of the show. Okay, so a little bit of love to Rick. Okay.
No, you could have told me that before I put him at 4.
little sewer right off the hop. You gotta love.
Yeah.
It.
Well,
little sewer. Now, Now, everyone knows this guy for being a pest in the NHL right now. Nick Cousins.
Oh, Nick Cousins. He's high on the all-time point list. I know that. Okay. I'm going to go and put him at 2.
Nick Cousins at 2. All right. Another good one here. Tyler Kennedy.
Tyler Kennedy.
Another friend of the show, just so you know.
Tyler Kennedy. So I would have been a kid watching him grow up, watching teams. Now, keep in mind, this is like their junior performance, right? Like I'm not ranking their like anything past their Greyhound.
Junior, Soo Greyhounds, impact, and everything.
I'm gonna put him at 3.
Okay.
That's a tough one because now we've only got 1 and 5.
1 and 5. Okay, the next one. I think this one's gonna go. You're gonna go. Friend of the show again. People might know the trend. What I'm doing here a little bit. Craig Hartsburg.
Well, that's got to be number 1, isn't it?
Are you gonna go 1 for sure? Because you don't know who the next one is.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Craig at number 1.
All right.
He has his jersey retired in the rafters, right? He's pretty much a Hounds legend player, coach.
Yep. World Junior legend.
Yeah,
NHL. But we're not factoring. We're not
factoring that in, but
in general, a resume.
In general, yeah. Okay.
Next one. Okay, I think you might roll your eyes because you might want this one higher. But met this guy in the bathroom last year for his jersey retirement ceremony, Joe Thornton.
Oh. Yeah, well. All right.
So you have Craig Hartsburg at 1, Nick Cousins at 2, Tyler Kennedy at 3, Rick Jackman 4, Joe Thornton 5. Not bad. Not bad. There's room for improvement in terms of where you probably could have put that, but for someone who just did the blind ranking for the first time.
Yeah, we got to get better at that next week, but
yeah.
But you know what? That's not bad.
That's good. Now, what I was going to ask you and throw you under the bus for a loop this week and say, hey, I want you to actually pick your top 5 Hounds of all time if you wanted to. But you know what? We'll hold that. Let's do that next week.
Sounds good.
Really think, but not named Wayne Gretzky. We're keeping Wayner out of the conversation. Okay. Wayner is out of the conversation. Okay. It's not fair. I know there's more names, okay, that are Hound legends, but I keep thinking Wayne because obviously just Wayne Gretzky's got the easiest name to remember because of who he is.
Yeah.
Right? But we'll do that. We'll do that next week. So that is the blind ranking. I think you did a good job on that overall. It's hard. I have these typed out beforehand. You don't know who's coming, right? It's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
That was awesome. I loved it.
Next time, we'll even do a who's better than version.
Ooh, I like that.
Lots of options that we can do.
That really makes it makes my brain work too.
It does. And there's a lot of very good Hound players that have come through Sault Ste. Marie. Our wall is legendary. There's a lot. And people have made good careers, obviously, Wayne Gretzky aside. There's a lot of players that have done so well. Our wall of Hall of Fame, all the wall that you see in the dressing room is so fantastic.
Yeah.
So this was 37 minutes of time, little extra for everyone to tune into. As we proceed forward, I will tell everybody that each segment will be under 20 minutes just to make sure everyone knows. But hey, I wanted to give Trudeau the extra time this week because this was our first show together. And let's get the flow going. Let's get the interactions going. For those of you who are come on here, if you're interacting through Spaces or if you've reached here through another means of avenue, TikTok, whatever it is, don't hesitate to interact with us. And make sure to remind you as well, follow us on all social media pages, okay? We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're also available to find through the 91N YouTube page, Spaces. Get on Spaces if you're in Sault Ste. Marie so you can interact with me and everybody else in the Soo that are trying to give that extra step for you to be interactive in the community. Very excited to be part of Spaces in Soo today. And Trudeau, ultimately, the best point for last year, truly very happy to have you now as a part of the Game Sports Podcast family, man. It's great. Our show has grown, and this is a very exciting segment that we get to give to people here in the Soo, especially.
So happy to be here. Thanks for having me. All right. Can't wait for next week already.
Awesome. It's going to be
All right.
great. Thanks, Trudes. And I want to get Trudeau gets to hear the sign off that he hasn't heard yet. Okay. So this is very right by the seat of the pants, Trude. And if you're new in Sault Ste. Marie and haven't heard my conclusion to my show, I've been doing this since 2016. Okay. So you get to hear it. So make sure again, like, follow, and subscribe. Everything in the Game Sports Podcast. Thank you again to Trudeau. Thank you again to Alex Parr. Thank you again to Brandon McCarthy. Thank you to Justin Hykel, the usual contributors here on the game, but to you, the viewers that make it all possible and why we'd love doing it even more. I'm here to remind you, keep your stick on the ice, swing your bats, catch your touchdowns, drain your threes, and shoot your shots. Booyah.